welcome to this explainer. Okay, so look at this. You've got politicians literally tumbling through the air, right? Grasping at flying ballots. It's totally chaotic. And it really makes you stop and ask a pretty fundamental question. Can democracy even exist without elections? Or, are elections just inevitably this messy? We almost always think of voting as this fixed, unchangeable pillar of democracy. But what if I told you that the foundation of who actually gets to govern isn't just about who we like the most? It's actually all about the hidden mathematical rules we use to count those votes. Crazy, right? So today, we're going to decode the actual mechanics of voting, the complex algorithms behind these systems. We're going to strip away all the noisy political campaigns and the rhetoric and just look purely at the mechanics. Because, as you'll see, how the rules of the game are designed completely and utterly dictates who takes power. We've got a lot of fascinating ground to cover today. We'll start with the rules of the game, then look at first past the post, move on to proportional representation, break down the transferable vote algorithm, and finally, look at India's hybrid election system. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The rules of the game. Chess, cricket, and elections. Think about playing a game of chess for a second. What would happen if, out of nowhere, the knight started moving in a straight line instead of its usual L shape? Or imagine a game of cricket with absolutely no umpires to make the calls. Total chaos, right? Maybe even a few brawls. In literally any sport, we have to follow specific rules, and those rules have to be agreed upon by an impartial body way before the game even starts. If you tweak those rules, the outcome of the game totally changes. Well, the exact same logic applies to electoral politics. If you change the rules of an election, the outcome, the actual winner, can change entirely, even if every single voter casts their ballot the exact same way. Section 2. First past the post. This simple race. Now, in the first past the post system, sometimes called the plurality system, it's quite literally a simple race to the finish line. The single candidate who is just ahead of the others, the one who crosses that winning post first, is the winner. Simple enough, right? But here is the absolutely crucial point. They do not even need to secure a full majority of the total votes, meaning they don't need over 50%. If candidate A gets, say, 35% of the vote, and the rest of the vote is splintered among 5 other candidates, well, candidate A wins the seat entirely. It's incredibly straightforward for you and me as voters. You pick one person, and the person with the most tallies wins the whole shebang. But as we'll see in a minute, this can lead to some seriously skewed math on a national scale. Section 3, Proportional Representation, the Quest for Perfect Math. So that brings us to a fundamentally different approach, which is the proportional representation system. You'll see this used in countries like Israel and the Netherlands. In this setup, voters generally choose a political party rather than an individual candidate. And the math here, it's beautifully elegant. If a party gets exactly 30% of the national votes, boom, they are awarded exactly 30% of the seats in parliament. Every single vote counts towards that national proportion, leaving almost 0 votes, quote-unquote, wasted. It's really a quest for this perfect mathematical representation of the public's will. Section 4. The transferable vote algorithm, doing the maths. Okay, so to be elected in a single transferable vote system, which is a really fascinating variant of proportional representation, a candidate actually has to reach a specific mathematical threshold of support. This is called the quota. So it's not just about getting the most votes, it's about getting enough votes to prove you have a true mandate. To put that into perspective, if there are 3 candidates to be elected and 140 total votes, the quota to win one seat might be exactly 36 votes. Or look at the fascinating case of electing the president of India. If there are 10,000 valid votes, the winner absolutely must secure at least 5,001 votes to meet the quota. But what happens if the votes are scattered everywhere and nobody hits that magic number in the first round? Well, here is how the algorithm actually steps in. In this system, voters don't just pick one person. They rank their preferences, so first, second, third, and so on. If no one meets the quota initially, we don't just shrug and hand the win to the person with the most votes. Instead, the candidate with the lowest number of first preference votes, let's say candidate C, or we'll call her Emma, is completely eliminated from the race. But Emma's voters aren't just ignored. Their votes are systematically redistributed to the remaining candidates based on who those voters marked as their second preference. And this elimination and redistribution process repeats in rounds until someone hits the quota. It's wild because it's entirely possible that candidate A was leading in the very first round, but once the lowest candidates are eliminated in their votes transfer, candidate B surprisingly emerges as the victor, all because they were broadly preferred by way more people as a solid second choice. Section 5. India's hybrid election system, the best of both worlds. let's actually put these two side by side to really understand the trade-offs here. First past the post, it's simple. It provides really clear local accountability because you know exactly which representative is responsible for your specific neighborhood. And, crucially, it tends to produce stable, clear majorities in parliament. Proportional representation, on the other hand, is incredibly mathematically fair. It ensures smaller voices actually get heard. But it's complex. It's heavily party-focused rather than locally focused. And because the seats are divided so perfectly by vote share, it often struggles to create a single-party stable government, which can sometimes lead to pretty fragile coalitions. To see how stark this difference can be in the real world, just look at the Tamil Nadu Assembly election back in 2016. Under first-past-the-post rules, the AIADMK party grabbed a massive majority of 135 seats. But check out their actual vote share. Only 40.77% of the voters actually chose them. If they'd been running under a strict proportional representation system, they would have only gotten about 40% of the seats. That wouldn't even be a majority, and the government might have been way less stable. So the first-past-the-post system effectively inflated their seat count to give them a commanding ability to govern. See how much the rules matter? Because of these glaring differences, India's constitution makers deployed a genuinely brilliant hybrid approach. They understood that for a massive, subcontinental country with immense diversity, forcing a proportional representation system for general elections could just lead to total chaos. You'd have communities forming countless small, nationwide parties, making stable governance practically impossible. So they smartly chose the simple first-past-the-post system for the Lok Sabha and state assemblies to ensure stability and simplicity for the everyday voter. But for critical, indirect elections, where a broader consensus is absolutely vital, like electing the president, the vice president, and members of the Rajya Sabha, they utilized that precise, preference-based, proportional representation algorithm we talked about. It really is the best of both worlds. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this visual. Giant, powerful politicians bowing down to a tiny, screaming figure labeled opposition. It perfectly encapsulates the tension we've been exploring today. The mathematical rules of voting directly dictate the size and the power of that opposition. So it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. When you look at your own local and national elections, do the mathematical rules of the game actually deliver the fair representation you deserve? Or are they just engineered to keep the game moving? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep asking questions about the rules that govern us.